Why so many older women resent their husbands. A heartbreaking reality. There's a quiet truth no one really prepares us for. Love, the same love that once felt unstoppable, can soften, weaken, and even turn bitter as the years go by. It's not sudden. It's not dramatic. It happens slowly, like a candle that once filled the whole room with light, but now flickers in the corner, struggling against the shadows. Many women, especially in America, wake up in their later years and feel a heaviness toward the man they once adored. The husband they built a life with, raised children with, sacrificed for, no longer stirs affection the way he once did. Instead, irritation grows where tenderness used to live. Silence replaces laughter. A sense of distance creeps in, even when two people are sitting right beside each other. It can be painful to admit, but resentment doesn't come out of nowhere. It builds over decades. The little things that were overlooked in youth, the forgotten anniversaries, the lack of listening, the dismissive comments, become heavier with time. A woman who gave so much of herself begins to feel that the return was too little, too late. And yet this story is not about blame. It's about truth. It's about understanding why, after 50 or 60 years of life, a woman may look at her husband and feel more weariness than warmth. These are not just small frustrations. They are reflections of a heart that once dreamed of partnership and now wonders if those dreams were too costly. But here's the thing. Hidden in this struggle is wisdom. It reveals what women truly need, what marriage requires to survive the long road, and what love must become if it is to last a lifetime. When we dare to look at the reasons behind this quiet dislike, we don't just uncover wounds, we discover the path to healing, respect, and a deeper kind of love that still can bloom in old age. Number 1, the weight of silent expectations. Every marriage begins with unspoken hopes. A young bride looks at her husband and sees not just the man in front of her, but the promise of who he might become. She believes he will be her protector, her confidant, her partner in both storms and sunshine. In those early years, she doesn't always say what she needs out loud. She assumes he knows. She assumes love will naturally carry the weight of all those expectations. But as the years turn into decades, silence begins to take its toll. The little disappointments that once seemed too small to matter now pile up like bricks. The husband who forgot to ask about her day, who dismissed her worries with a shrug, who treated her dreams as if they were less important than his own. Each moment may have seemed harmless in the moment, yet over time, those little cracks form a canyon. Women carry these expectations in ways men often do not understand. A woman who stayed home with the children may have expected her husband to see her sacrifices, to value her contribution as much as a paycheck. A woman who worked alongside her husband may have expected him to share in the housework, to respect her dual load. When those expectations go unmet, not once, but countless times, the heart begins to harden. Resentment doesn't roar, it whispers. It sits quietly at the dinner table when the husband talks over her words. It lingers in the bedroom when he turns his back without thought. It hides in the sigh she swallows when she sees him sitting in front of the television while she cleans the kitchen again. These are the silent expectations, unmet and unspoken, that accumulate until a woman no longer feels admiration, only disappointment. And the tragedy is this: many men truly don't see it. They assume silence means contentment. They assume the absence of complaints means satisfaction. But silence is not agreement. Silence is often the sound of love being stretched too thin, of patience wearing out. By the time they realize something has been lost, it is often decades too late. This is why so many women in their later years look at their husbands with a sense of distance. It's not that they never loved him. It's that the man she hoped he would be never quite appeared, and the weight of carrying those quiet, unmet expectations eventually breaks something inside. Number 2. The burden of unequal roles. In countless American households, especially for those who married in the mid-20th century, the roles were clear. Men worked outside the home. Women worked inside of it. She raised the children, cooked the meals, cleaned the house, managed the schedules, and held the family together. And while this division of labor seemed normal at the time, it carried a cost that many women only fully recognize later in life. For decades, wives poured themselves out in service to their families. They gave up careers, dreams, and often their own identities to ensure their husbands could succeed and their children could thrive. While husbands built reputations in the workplace, wives built the invisible foundation of the home. Yet when the children are grown and the house is quieter, many women look back and ask, who noticed? Who thanked me? Who truly shared the burden? Men often thought of themselves as providers, believing a paycheck fulfilled their role. But money does not wash dishes. It does not soothe crying babies at midnight. It does not sit in the parent-teacher meeting or remember to buy the birthday gift. Too often, women bore that invisible weight alone, and as they age, they see the imbalance more clearly. A woman may look at her husband, sitting comfortably in retirement, while she still carries the habits of service ingrained over decades. She notices that he never learned how to cook a meal, never took responsibility for managing the household, never truly stepped into her world, and she feels not just tired, but unappreciated. In later years, that imbalance begins to sting. A wife may feel she lived her life carrying two loads, her own and her husband's. She cared for everyone else, but who cared for her? When she needed emotional support, was he there? When she wanted partnership in decision-making, did he listen? When she longed to be seen as more than a mother or housekeeper, did he recognize her worth? The truth is, many women in America silently endured this inequality because it was expected. But time has a way of magnifying what was once ignored. In the quiet of old age, the exhaustion of carrying more than her share surfaces as resentment. She doesn't hate her husband. She dislikes the way he let her shoulder what should have been shared. And here is the heartbreaking reality. This burden was never about chores or tasks alone. It was about respect. To share the work of life is to say, I see you. I value what you do. I will not let you carry it alone. When that respect is absent, the imbalance becomes not just physical but emotional, and with each passing year the dislike deepens. Not because she gave too little, but because she gave too much without ever receiving enough in return. Number 3. Emotional neglect hurts more than physical absence. A man can be present in the house every single night of his marriage, yet still feel absent to his wife. He may sit at the table, watch television on the couch, sleep in the same bed, and still not really be. What so many women discover as they grow older is that physical presence cannot replace emotional connection. For many men, providing financially or fulfilling practical duties is how they show love. They believe, I worked hard, I put food on the table, I stayed faithful. What more could she want? But for a woman's heart, especially in later years, the answer is simple. She wants to be seen, heard, and cherished. She wants tenderness in his words, curiosity about her inner world, comfort in her loneliness, and shared laughter in the quiet. When those things are missing, a woman begins to feel invisible. The man she once longed for becomes more like a roommate, sharing the same roof but not her soul. She may try in younger years to ask for affection, to speak her need for conversation or closeness. But if those requests are brushed aside, dismissed, or met with defensiveness, she eventually stops asking. Her silence does not mean contentment. It means resignation. and that resignation becomes dislike. Not fiery hatred, but a dull ache of indifference that grows heavier with age. Many elderly women in America describe this pain not as something sudden, but as something they carried for years in secret. Their husbands may have believed everything was fine, but in her heart she was starving for connection. Emotional neglect cuts deeper than most men realize. A woman can forgive financial struggle, illness, or hardships that come with life. But what she struggles to forgive is being ignored. She cannot easily forget the moments when she sat at the kitchen table, longing for him to ask how she felt, only to hear silence. Or the years when she needed encouragement, but instead received indifference. By the time old age arrives, the absence of emotional intimacy feels louder than ever. With children grown and careers ending, the distractions are gone. What remains is the relationship itself, and if that relationship lacks warmth, the void is undeniable. Women begin to feel as though they lived beside strangers, not partners. And so, dislike grows not from what was done, but from what was not done. It's the hugs that weren't given, the conversations that never happened, the moments of comfort that slipped away. Emotional neglect doesn't just wound. It drains love until all that remains is distance. Number 4. Midlife transformation and identity shifts. There comes a point in a woman's life, often in her 50s or 60s, when she begins to reflect more deeply on her identity. The children are grown. The chaos of building a home has settled. She finally has time to think about herself, and in that stillness, many women in America begin to realize how much of themselves they sacrificed, how many dreams they set aside, and how many years they devoted to the needs of everyone else. This transformation is both liberating and painful. She may discover new passions, art, travel, volunteering, learning, that had been buried beneath years of responsibility. She may find her voice in ways she never dared before. But as she grows, she looks at her husband and wonders, is he growing too? Often the answer is no. Many men resist change. They are content with routine, with the familiar patterns of life, with who they have always been. While their wives begin to awaken to new dimensions of themselves, they remain fixed, uninterested, or even dismissive of her transformation, and this mismatch creates distance. A woman who rediscovers her identity longs for a partner who will celebrate her growth, who will walk beside her as she becomes more than what she was. Instead, she may find a man who mocks her efforts, ignores her passions, or withdraws further into his own habits. The result, she feels alone in her evolution, and slowly begins to dislike the man who refuses to journey with her. The irony is that many husbands see this change as rejection, when in truth it is an invitation. When a wife explores new horizons, she is not necessarily walking away from him. She is asking him to walk with her, to engage, to rediscover life together. But when he shrugs, when he retreats, when he clings to the past, she is left moving forward alone. This is why in later years, so many women feel disconnected from their husbands. They are no longer the same women they were in their 20s or 30s, and yet their husbands still treat them as though they never changed. What once felt like a partnership now feels like a chain, holding her back from who she longs to be. Midlife transformation does not destroy marriages. It reveals whether those marriages can adapt. If both partners grow, the bond can deepen. If only one does, the imbalance creates frustration, loneliness, and ultimately dislike. For a woman, nothing is more painful than realizing the man she once dreamed with refuses to dream anymore. Number 5. Lingering wounds from the past. Time does not erase wounds. It only buries them until silence and years press them deeper. Many women enter old age carrying scars that their husbands may have long forgotten. A harsh word spoken decades ago. A moment of betrayal, large or small. A season when she felt abandoned in her pain. To him, these may seem like things that should be left in the past. To her, they are seeds that grew into roots of sorrow. In their younger years, she may have chosen not to speak of these hurts. Perhaps she forgave, at least outwardly. Perhaps she told herself that what mattered was keeping the family together. Perhaps she even believed that if she ignored the pain long enough, it would fade. But aging has a way of stripping away distractions. When the children are gone, when work slows, when nights grow quieter, those old wounds come rushing back. A woman remembers the time she cried in silence while her husband dismissed her feelings. She recalls the arguments that ended not with resolution, but with her swallowing her pride to keep the peace. She remembers how he mocked her ideas, how he was absent in her greatest struggles, or how he failed to protect her when she needed it most. These memories may have been pushed to the edges of life, but in the stillness of age, they echo louder than ever. Many men assume that their wives got over it, but women rarely forget. The pain may soften, but it lingers, and when she looks at her husband in old age, she doesn't just see the man sitting across from her, she sees every moment he wounded her and never made it right. The resentment becomes dislike when wounds remain unhealed. It's not that she cannot forgive, it's that he never sought forgiveness. It's not that she wants to hold on to the past, it's that he never acknowledged the past in the first place. Without true repentance, without honest conversations, without humility, the weight of old pain remains. And in old age, the patience to keep pretending runs out. Women who once smiled through the hurt now feel too tired to pretend. Their dislike grows, not because they are bitter souls, but because they have carried unhealed wounds for too long. A husband who ignored those wounds may never understand why she looks at him with such coldness, but the truth is written in the history they never faced together. Number 6. The desire for respect and companionship. As women grow older, what they long for changes. In their youth, they may have dreamed of passion, romance, and security. But in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, the deepest longing is much simpler: respect and companionship. A gentle word, a listening ear, a shared laugh over morning coffee, a quiet walk hand in hand. These small moments become the greatest treasures. When a husband fails to offer respect, a woman's heart begins to turn away. Respect is not about grand gestures or titles. It is about daily honor. It is the tone of voice he uses when she speaks. It is whether he listens when she shares her thoughts. It is the way he acknowledges her sacrifices, values her wisdom, and treats her as a partner rather than a burden. Too many women in America describe old age as a season of being dismissed. Husbands may talk over them, ignore their opinions, or joke at their expense in front of others. What may seem harmless banter to him can feel like deep humiliation to her. Over time, those small acts erode trust and affection, until only dislike remains. Companionship is equally vital. At this stage of life, most women do not need gifts or wealth. They need presence. They need someone who will sit beside them during a doctor's appointment, who will hold their hand when fear creeps in at night, who will listen to their stories without impatience. They need someone who chooses to walk beside them in both conversation and silence. When husbands withdraw into themselves, into television, into hobbies, into indifference, the wife feels abandoned. She no longer longs for grand adventures, only for togetherness. If he cannot give her even that, then what remains of the marriage? She feels not like a partner, but like an afterthought. Respect and companionship are not luxuries. They are lifelines. A woman who does not feel respected cannot offer affection. A woman who does not feel companionship cannot offer joy. Without these, even the strongest marriage can dissolve into cold civility. She may not leave him, but she will no longer like him. Dislike grows most strongly when love is not nurtured with daily respect. In the end, women are not asking for perfection. They are asking for kindness. They are asking to be seen. They are asking for their husbands to walk with them, not ahead of them or behind them. When this is denied, affection fades. When this is given, even old age can be filled with warmth. Number 7. Hope beyond dislike. Rediscovering each other. It's easy to believe that once dislike has set in, the story is over. But that isn't always true. In fact, some of the most powerful love stories are born not in youth, but in old age, when two people, weary from years of misunderstanding, finally decide to see each other again with fresh eyes. And that dislike can be a warning sign, a wake-up call. It can whisper to both husband and wife, something needs to change. And while it is painful to admit the distance, it is also the first step toward healing. Many couples discover that if they are willing to strip away pride, if they are willing to talk honestly about the hurts and the years of silence, a new kind of love can begin to take root. This love is different from youthful passion. It is not fueled by infatuation or the rush of desire. Instead, it is gentler, wiser, more enduring. It shows up in small gestures, a husband finally learning to ask his wife how she feels, and truly listening, a wife finding the courage to say what she needs, instead of swallowing her words, a couple choosing to laugh together again over simple things, as though remembering the spark that once drew them close. Change often begins with humility. For a husband, it may mean admitting that he failed to meet his wife's emotional needs, that he took her for granted, that he did not notice her sacrifices. For a wife, it may mean softening the walls of resentment and allowing space for grace. Both must let go of the need to be right, and instead choose the greater gift of being reconciled. And when they do, something beautiful happens. Old age, instead of being a season of bitterness, becomes a season of renewal. A husband who once seemed distant becomes a friend again. A wife who once felt unseen begins to glow with the light of being valued. The years of pain do not vanish, but they transform into lessons, reminders of how fragile love is and how precious it becomes when protected. Some couples even find that this late-blooming love is stronger than what they knew in their 20s, because it is forged not in dreams but in reality. It has weathered storms, endured silence, and survived disappointments. And yet, it still lives. That resilience makes it deeper, steadier, and more lasting. The truth is, dislike does not have to be the final chapter. It can be the turning point. With patience, humility, and courage, two people can choose to fall in love again, not with who they once were, but with who they have become. And that choice, made in the quiet years of life, can transform resentment into redemption and loneliness into companionship that is sweeter because it was fought for. Conclusion: when the candle still flickers. In the end, the story of why women begin to dislike their husbands as they grow older is not a story of failure. It is a story of longing. Longing to be seen, to be respected, to be cherished after a lifetime of giving. It is the ache of expectations unmet, of burdens carried alone, of wounds unhealed, of companionship desired but withheld. But it is also a story of possibility. Because dislike is not the same as hatred, it is often a sign of how deeply she once cared, and how deeply she still wishes things could change. That means there is hope. A candle may flicker, but it has not gone out. With the right breath of humility, of tenderness, of genuine respect, it can burn bright again. For husbands, the wisdom is clear. It is never too late to love better. To notice the woman who has walked beside you for decades. To listen, not just with your ears but with your heart. To offer companionship, not out of duty but out of delight. For wives, the wisdom is equally true. Forgiveness does not erase the past, but it can free the heart to embrace what remains. Old age reveals the truth about love. It strips away the distractions of youth and leaves only the essence of a relationship. And in that raw honesty, couples face a choice. Let dislike harden into distance, or let it awaken a new chapter of tenderness. The years may be long, but the days ahead are still precious, and for those willing to rediscover each other, even in the twilight, love can still shine, not with the fire of youth, but with the steady glow of two souls who chose, against all odds, to remain together until the end.